We tend to think of intelligence as a fixed trait, something we either have or don't. It's often defined by how fast we solve problems, how much we remember, or how efficiently we reach our goals. But this way of thinking overlooks a quieter, more universal truth. Intelligence isn't just about answers, it's about approach. It's about how we adapt when nothing is certain, how we observe, adjust, and find clarity in the complexity of life. And for that kind of wisdom, there may be no better teachers than the animals who live closest to uncertainty. These are beings who face shifting environments, evolving threats, and unpredictable circumstances every single day, without certainty, without comfort, and without control. Yet many of them don't just endure. They thrive. Among the most extraordinary examples of natural intelligence are the octopus, the crow, and the fox. Three animals, each shaped by very different pressures, each with unique challenges, and yet each demonstrating a form of intelligence that transcends instinct. What makes their strategies so compelling isn't just how clever they are in the technical sense, but how relevant their ways of thinking can be for us. Their lives speak to our own, not as metaphors, but as mirrors. Because just like them, we often find ourselves navigating uncertainty, needing to make sense of change, to move through complexity, and to live with intention, not just reaction. The octopus, learning without guidance, adapting without fear. Deep beneath the surface of the ocean, in a world shaped by shifting currents, scattered light, and endless uncertainty, the octopus lives alone. From the moment it emerges into that world, it is without guidance. There are no parents to follow, no group to rely on, no path laid out in front of it. And yet, somehow, it learns. Not through instruction or imitation, but through direct engagement with the world around it. The octopus explores by touch, by movement, by interaction. Its 8 limbs aren't just tools for locomotion, they're part of a distributed intelligence, sensing and processing information in real time. Its body becomes an extension of its mind, capable of interpreting texture, temperature, tension, and more, all at once. Its skin changes not just in color but in texture, responding to the landscape like a living, breathing canvas. This creature survives not by resisting its environment, but by integrating with it. It makes decisions constantly: where to move, where to shelter, how to adjust its shape and rhythm to what the moment requires. And while it may seem alien to us in form, the intelligence it embodies is deeply familiar. Because many of us know what it means to be dropped into situations without a clear guide. We've faced moments of solitude, of unfamiliarity, of having to figure things out as we go. Times when we had no blueprint, no mentor, no certainty, only our senses, our instincts, and our willingness to stay present. And like the octopus, we learn not by force but by immersion, by paying attention, by staying responsive instead of reactive. The octopus doesn't seek to control its surroundings, it collaborates with them. It teaches us that flexibility isn't weakness, and solitude doesn't mean lack. There is a kind of strength that comes from learning to trust our internal compass, even when the map is incomplete. That kind of intelligence is fluid, embodied, and hard-earned, and it often shows up most clearly when we allow ourselves to stay curious in the face of uncertainty. The crow, emotional memory, social learning, and the power of attention. While the octopus navigates solitude, the crow thrives in relationships. It is not just intelligent in the analytical sense, it is emotionally and socially attuned, capable of understanding patterns not only in its environment, but in the behavior of others. Crows live in tight-knit, dynamic communities where knowledge doesn't begin and end with the individual. What one crow observes, another may apply. What one generation experiences, the next learns to avoid or embrace. Their intelligence is shared, passed between peers, carried through memory, and refined over time. They're acutely aware of their surroundings and the beings within them. A crow will remember the face of someone who treated it kindly, or someone who posed a threat, for years. It can distinguish intention not just through action, but through tone, gesture, and energy, and it acts accordingly. Crows don't just react, they respond with context, strategy, and insight. But perhaps most striking is the emotional depth of their memory. When a fellow crow dies, others gather. They pause and remain still. And while we can't claim to know what they feel, their behavior suggests that something meaningful is being processed. Not just danger assessed, but loss acknowledged. This kind of awareness, of others, of history, of emotion, is something many of us struggle to maintain in our own lives. We're often taught to prioritize speed over reflection, efficiency over empathy. But the crow reminds us that intelligence is also about attention. It's about slowing down enough to notice, to recognize patterns in ourselves and others, to act not just with information, but with emotional insight. And it's also about legacy, not the kind we put on resumes, but the kind that lives in how we treat one another, what we pass on, and what we choose to carry forward. The crow teaches us to value emotional memory as much as intellectual clarity. Because when we stop and truly observe the world around us, we begin to understand that wisdom doesn't always shout. Often, it's built quietly, one thoughtful choice at a time. The fox, strategic movement, and the wisdom of timing. If the octopus embodies solitary adaptability and the crow reveals the intelligence of social memory, the fox offers a third path, one grounded in strategy, subtlety, and timing. Foxes don't force outcomes. They don't rely on dominance or aggression. Instead, they observe first, move carefully, and act when the conditions are right. They're present, but not obvious. Engaged, but never hurried. Their intelligence lies in how well they read the moment and how selectively they choose to respond. They navigate environments that change constantly, often skirting the edges of human settlements, crossing paths with other species, adapting to new risks and opportunities with minimal disruption. But they don't just survive change, they anticipate it and move in harmony with it. Their decisions seem small on the surface, a shift in direction, a pause before stepping forward, but over time, those choices add up to something powerful. In our lives, we're often pushed to act quickly, to be decisive, to stay ahead. But the fox reminds us that intelligence also lives in stillness, in watching, in choosing not to act until action will have meaning. Its strength lies in its ability to remain grounded in a world that constantly demands movement. The fox invites us to rethink what it means to be effective. Not every challenge requires a bold move. Sometimes, the smartest path is the one that keeps us steady, the one that lets us respond with clarity instead of reacting with urgency. There's a quiet wisdom in knowing when to move forward and when to wait, when to speak and when to listen, when to assert and when to simply adapt. That's what the fox teaches. Intelligence isn't just about what you know, it's about how well you time your steps in the dance of your environment. When we step back and reflect on the lives of the octopus, the crow, and the fox, a deeper thread begins to emerge, one that runs through all three, connecting them in quiet, powerful ways. Each of these animals lives in a world full of uncertainty, yet each responds not with panic or rigidity, but with presence, perception, and intention. The octopus teaches us what it means to adapt from within. It shows us that when no one is there to guide you, you still have everything you need to find your way: curiosity, observation, and the ability to shape yourself in response to what life asks of you. In moments when we feel alone or unprepared, when we're faced with change that feels overwhelming, the octopus reminds us that we can still move forward, fluidly, thoughtfully, and on our own terms. The crow reveals a different kind of intelligence, one rooted in memory, emotion, and connection. Its world is rich with relationships, shaped by what it has seen and what it chooses to remember. The crow reminds us that we don't grow in isolation. We grow through reflection, through paying attention, not just to our experiences, but to how they've shaped us and how they might help others if we're willing to share what we've learned. It's a call to honor the past, not by clinging to it, but by understanding the lessons it offers. And then there is the fox, subtle, strategic, and quietly wise. The fox doesn't rush and it doesn't force. It moves with a kind of grace that comes from being fully attuned to its surroundings. In a world that often tells us to hurry, to act, to prove ourselves constantly, the fox offers a different way, one that values patience, timing, and discernment. It reminds us that intelligence isn't always about action. Sometimes it's about knowing when to act and why. These aren't just animal behaviors. They're blueprints, gentle, profound reflections of our own inner lives. Think about your own life for a moment. Are there places where you're trying to force clarity when what's really needed is flexibility? Are there situations where you feel alone, like you're figuring everything out from scratch without support. Or maybe you're carrying memories, relationships, or past experiences that are asking for more of your attention than you've given them. Perhaps you're moving too quickly, reacting out of fear or habit, when what your situation actually calls for is quiet strategy, like the fox's ability to pause, listen, and act only when the time is right. These animals aren't perfect. They don't live without struggle, but they survive and thrive because they've found ways to live with the world, not in conflict with it. And their lives are a reminder that we can too. The octopus teaches us to create space for exploration, even when we feel uncertain. The crow reminds us that our stories, even the painful ones, have value, and that the connections we build are often our greatest source of wisdom. The fox encourages us to trust that we don't need to prove ourselves constantly, that quiet intelligence and well-timed choices are just as powerful as bold action. So if you find yourself in a season of change, or facing a decision without a clear answer, or even just feeling out of rhythm with the life you're living, return to these lessons. Let the octopus show you how to move through the unknown with adaptability and trust. Let the crow remind you to reflect, to feel, and to share what you've learned. And let the fox guide you back to stillness, to the part of you that already knows when to act, when to wait, and how to stay aligned with what matters. Nature doesn't ask us to be perfect. It asks us to be present, to keep noticing, to keep adjusting, and to live with care, not just efficiency. And when we learn to think not just more, but more like nature, we begin to see intelligence not as something to prove, but as something to embody, something we practice, one thoughtful choice at a time. You are not behind, you are not lost. Like the octopus, the crow, and the fox, you are simply responding to the world around you and becoming wiser in the process. Let that be enough for now, and let that be your next step forward.